The once lively succubus shrine had become lonely and quiet after Noctul's defeat. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. This principle was no exception even for god spirits. However, as Zhou Fight and the generals entered the shrine became lively again. Zhou Fight came to the throne and frowned slightly as he looked at the somewhat demonic purple throne in front of him. There was an enchanting carving on the throne. The carving was of the succubus god lord. He waved his right hand, and the carving of the succubus god lord changed rapidly. In a short while, it turned into Noctul. Since the succubus god lord has given up on this emperor, then this emperor doesn't need to believe in him anymore. This emperor doesn't need to worship a master god tier advanced grade god spirit. Zhou Fight sat down with an indifferent expression. Just as he was about to discuss with Bai Yun and what they wanted to do next, a pure and beautiful succubus with a hint of charm walked in from outside the shrine. He looked at Bai Yun and the other generals on both sides in confusion. Then he came in front of Zhou Fight and respectfully said, "Lilith greets your majesty." Even though his tone was respectful, everyone present felt that his tone was enchanting. However, they were experienced and knowledgeable people. They knew that this was not an intentional attitude, but the natural charm of a succubus. Even Bai Yun could not help but sigh in her heart with the other party's appearance and devilish figure. This was a natural-born minx. Zhou Fight looked at Lilith and recalled her identity. Lilith. The Prime Minister of the Succubus Divine Kingdom was equivalent to Zheng Yuanqi in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Not only was she Noctul's childhood playmate, she was also his most trusted subordinate. After Noctul was killed by the Scarlet Fog monster and transformed into a fog creature, Lilith also took the initiative to join the Crimson Overlord and got the god spirits of the Scarlet Camp to transform herself into a scarlet creature. She had paid such a huge price for a simple goal, to continue being with Noctul, and she had indeed gotten what she wanted. The two of them supported Noctul all the way here. In the end, Noctul became a top-notch Scarlet Lord, and Lilith became the first Prime Minister of the Succubus Divine Kingdom. The two of them, one on the outside and one on the inside, had always cooperated very well. As a result, the Succubus Divine Kingdom continued to prosper until Noctul decided to start a war with Aus. This is true love. Zhou Fight lamented inwardly. Then he said, "Lilith, what do you want?" Lilith looked at the soldiers on both sides with a troubled expression. Zhou Fight said lightly, "Just say it. They are all subordinates that this emperor trusts. There's nothing that can't be said." When Lilith heard this, the difficult expression on her face eased a little, even though he still didn't want to say it in public, since Noctul had said so. He could only say, "Your Majesty." Just now, I received news that an extremely serious wave of deserters has appeared in our Char Magic Corps. After the defeat, the Char Magic Corps originally only had 630 billion troops, 100,000 god spirits, 5,000 true gods, and 12 master gods left. Currently, there are only 200 billion troops, 40,000 god spirits, and 1,000 true gods left. As for the master gods, they have all escaped. Zhou Fight nodded nonchalantly. Lilith panicked when she saw how calm Zhou Fight was. "Noctul, why do you still look so anxious? Come with me and persuade they to come back. We've just lost a battle. We are really finished if you don't do something as our emperor," Lilith said anxiously. Zhou Fight looked at him in surprise. No one had ever dared to speak to him in such a manner in his Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Even Li Ya, who was closest to him, spoke to him warmly. How dare this little succubus, however, when he thought about the other party's relationship. With Noctul, Zhou Fight wasn't surprised. They were childhood sweethearts who had grown up together after all. It was understandable for them to speak without thinking. In the memories of the original, Lilith usually respected him as an emperor, much less shout at him in front of everyone. This was the first time something like this had happened. Lilith was probably really anxious, Naturally, Zhou Fight would not blame her. What should be mine will be mine sooner or later. If it's not mine, I can't be bothered to keep it. Zhou Fight said lightly, "Let them go." There's no need to persuade them to return. They were just some fence-sitters. There were not many of them, and they were not strong. Zhou Fight could not be bothered to ask them to stay. Upon hearing this, Lilith looked at him in shock. Why did Noctoul seem completely different from before? In the past, when Noctoul heard this news, he would definitely be very anxious to persuade those deserters to return with him, so that he could retain his strength and continue fighting for the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army. Spot. However, when Noctoul heard the news, not only was he not anxious, he even felt cold and disdainful. It was as if their departure was not a loss to Noctoul, so he did not need to care. Was this still the Noctoul that he knew? Zhou Fight also noticed Lilith's shocked and puzzled gaze, but he didn't mind. This was because he believed that the power of the reality cube could protect his identity from being exposed. Sure enough, even though Lilith was somewhat puzzled by Zhou Fight's reaction, he instinctively did not think too much about it. He looked at Bai Yun and the others on both sides and asked in puzzlement, "All right, but Your Majesty, when I first entered the hall, I wanted to ask why you sent the Charm Magic Legion's generals to be stationed in the Shrines Hall." Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly came to a realization. I understand now. His Majesty must have been worried that his life would be in danger, so he had stationed the most powerful soldiers of the Charm Magic Corps under him to protect him from the sudden arrival of enemies. He had just experienced defeat not long ago. It was very normal for he to have such vigilance and a crisis mentality after all. Thinking of this, Lilith could not help but look at His Majesty with pity. His Majesty still did not feel safe after he experienced defeat. Even though he looked calm on the surface, he must be extremely afraid on the inside, right? His expression suddenly became gentle and charming. "Your Majesty, I will go to your place tonight to accompany you." Zhou Fight. If it wasn't the sisters, what was going on? Why did they suddenly do this? He immediately flipped through the memories of the original him in his mind and found many scenes that minors couldn't know. He had a strange expression. It turned out that Noctoul and Lilith had already experienced adulthood, as soon as they became adults. Moreover, when the two gods were under pressure, they would relieve each other's pressure. No wonder Lilith's words were so smooth and natural, so it's a regular occurrence. Maybe later. Zhou Fight shook his head. "Lilith, this Emperor wants you to do something. Please do, Your Majesty." Lilith was stunned for a moment before she immediately said respectfully, "This Emperor wants you to immediately contact Lord Carl of the Death, Scarlet Divine Kingdom. Lord Wave of the Devil, Scarlet Divine Kingdom. Lord Cain of the Devil Blood, Scarlet Divine Kingdom. Lord Aozu of the Bone, Scarlet Divine Kingdom." Zhou Fight listed the names of at least 20 lords of divine kingdoms in one breath. The lords of these divine kingdoms were all top-notch Scarlet Lords without exception. In the past, their strength and status were not inferior to Noctoul's. Even if some of them were weaker than Noctoul, they were not much weaker. After Zhou Fight said the names of the top Scarlet Lords, he continued, "Contact them and tell them that I've invited them to hold a Dihuang meeting in the ownerless city. I've invited them to discuss important matters. If they asked if it's something big, just say that you can't. Say it out loud before we meet. Otherwise, it'll be easily heard by outsiders. However, this matter concerns the selection of the Scarlet Supreme Reserve in the future. It's now or never. If they doesn't come, don't blame me for not reminding them when they regret it in the future." "Yes, Your Majesty." Lilith was shocked by Zhou Fight's calmness. She looked at Zhou Fight and could not tell that he was an emperor who had just suffered a great defeat. Lilith couldn't help but feel a little dazzled by his calm demeanor and Di Huang's domineering and noble temperament. "Is this still my Majesty?" she thought intoxicatedly. Could His Majesty have actually undergone a complete transformation after experiencing this huge setback? Otherwise, why did he seem like a different person? Lilith thought to herself. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain the changes that had happened to His Majesty. He couldn't have been possessed by someone else, right? She shook her head. Who would possess a lord who was at the end of his rope? Wouldn't it be better to possess a stronger lord? Your Majesty, what are you doing? Lilith hesitated for a long time before she could not help but ask. Don't ask questions, just do it, Zhou Zhou said. Lilith frowned slightly, but she still obediently did it. As Zhou Zhou watched Lilith leave, he thought about his plan. He used the Scarlet Lord selection as a bargaining chip. Those top-notch Scarlet Lords would definitely come. When he arrived, he would send a joint invitation to they, and then attack Os's Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom with them. Of course, they were not fools. They understood that Aus was powerful, so even if they proposed a joint proposal, they might not dare to start a war against Aus. But it doesn't matter. When the time came, he could call Bai Yun out. With Bai Yun and the other Supreme, gods and Master God tier around, they would definitely believe that he had the ability to overthrow Aus's rule. At that time, they would definitely be willing to join forces with him to overthrow Os's chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom. As for where Bai Yun and the other Supreme Gods and Master Gods came from, just make up a reason. For example, he had encountered an expert on his way back. That expert had a huge grudge with the predecessor of the chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom, and did not want to see the rise of the chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom. However, Aus was the Scarlet Lord, and was protected by the Crimson Overlord. If he wanted to prevent the rise of the Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom, he could not do it himself. He could only choose to indirectly destroy the remaining members of the Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom by helping him. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou felt that even though there were some small problems with his plan, these problems could be easily resolved. Most importantly, when these top-notch Scarlet Lords arrived, it would not be up to them to decide whether to ally or not. His Land of Earth, a minister of the king, was not jealous. If he could not come to an agreement with they, he could only use the Land of Earth, a minister of the king, and make them his loyal subordinates. When the time came, it would achieve the same effect. As the old saying goes, a forced melon may not be sweet, but at least it quenches your thirst. Zhou Zhou didn't care about the process as long as the result was in line with his wishes. At the same time, even though Lilith didn't know what Noctul wanted to do, she still did as he said and sent the invitation to the top Scarlet Lords. Soon, these top-notch Scarlet Lords were invited by Zhou Zhou, the Death Scarlet Divine Kingdom. In the Divine Capital. Carl looked at the invitation letter in front of him thoughtfully. Noctul is still in the mood to invite us for a face-to-face meeting? He is a fellow who's on the verge of extinction. He sure has a big heart. However, Noctul said that the matter he invited us to discuss concerns with the 5th Reserve Army. Is what he said true? Is he lying to us? And why did he choose this moment to invite us over? The more Carl thought about it, the more questions he had. After a long silence, he said, Toot. Your Majesty. A skeleton general teleported in front of him and said respectfully, Prepare to take Tut to the ownerless city, Carl said. Yes, Your Grace. The skeleton general. Tut didn't ask any questions and went to carry out Carl's orders. Carl looked at Tut's back, his expression uncertain. He still decided to make a trip. If what Noctul said was true, then he, as an ambitious Scarlet Lord, definitely couldn't miss out on information related to the Scarlet Lord. In addition, Noctul had fought with Aus before. This time, even if he did not obtain any information about the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army, he still wanted to use Noctul to understand Aus's current strength. Noctul had just been defeated by Aus. He should be the Scarlet Lord who understood Os's strength the best among all the Scarlet Lords. Os, he's a tough nut to crack, he muttered. Other than Carl, the other top-notch Scarlet Lords who received the invitation also had their own reactions. But in the end, they had decided to make a trip to the ownerless city. Top-notch lords like them were all ambitious lords after all. They all had ambitions and desires for the position of the 5th Reserve Army, since Noctul said that he had intelligence on the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army. Regardless of whether the news was true or not, they had to go and take a look. Otherwise, they would not be able to rest easy when they cultivated in the future. An ownerless city, a special area in the Crimson Great Cosmos. Even though it was called a city, the scale of this city was very large. Its size was even comparable to the size of an entire boundless universe. It could be said to be one of the most famous universe wonders in the Crimson Great Cosmos. Naturally, this space wonder had a great origin. It was said that the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord had fought for countless years. During these years, other than war, the Supreme Will had also mentioned to the Crimson Overlord that it wanted to negotiate peace with the Crimson Overlord to calm the continuous war between the two universes and bring true eternal peace to the living beings of the two universes. However, the Crimson Overlord's nature was the opposite of the Supreme Will. The Crimson Overlord had to resolutely reject the suggestion of the Supreme Will, so the proposal fell through. Later, the Supreme Will, who was peace-loving by nature, suggested peace negotiations to the Crimson Overlord twice. The second time, the Crimson Overlord still refused. Until the third time, it was unknown if the Crimson Overlord was annoyed by the Supreme Will's persistent spirit or if it was for some other reason, but it finally agreed to a peace negotiation with the Supreme Will. However, the Crimson Overlord made a request. Want peace talks? Sure, if he had the guts, he would come to the Crimson Great Cosmos to negotiate peace. The Crimson Great Cosmos was the territory of the Crimson Overlord. In the Crimson Great Cosmos, the power of the Crimson Overlord would be greatly enhanced. On the contrary, if the Supreme Will braved to enter the Supreme Great Cosmos, he would be greatly weakened. On the other hand, it was the same. In other words, if the Supreme Will entered the Crimson Great Cosmos, the difference in strength between he and the Crimson Overlord would increase greatly. At that time, the Crimson Overlord would mainly attack the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will might not be able to escape and die in the Crimson Great Cosmos. Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that the Crimson Overlord was betting that the Supreme Will would not dare to enter his Crimson Great Cosmos for peace negotiations. At that time, the Crimson Overlord could use this reason as an excuse to naturally reject the other party's peace negotiation suggestion. The other party would not be able to say anything. However, the Supreme Will finally decided to come to the Crimson Overlord's surprise. It was said that on the day he came, there were 2 days in the sky and 2 days in the earth, wherever the Supreme Will passed. The scarlet aura dissipated. It even transformed the nomological laws of the Crimson Great Cosmos, where he passed into the Supreme Great Cosmos. If any living being from the High Continent came to the places where the Paramount Will passed by, they would be surprised to find that these places had become habitable. They did not have to worry about being harmed by the scarlet fog and turning into fog monsters here. Just like that, the Supreme Will walked all the way and finally arrived at a desolate, primitive world. This primitive world is the original site of the unclaimed city, the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord used their supreme power to forcefully create this boundless universe into an ownerless city, as a temporary place for they to negotiate peacefully. Even though the negotiations broke down in the end, this ownerless city was still preserved and became a famous universe wonder of the Crimson Great Cosmos. The ownerless city allowed any life form to stay here. Even the living beings of the Supreme Great Cosmos could live here without worrying about being killed by the scarlet creatures, because this was the rule of an ownerless city. As long as they entered this ownerless city, they could not cause trouble, let alone fight and kill. Otherwise, the willpower of the Supreme Will left behind here, and the willpower of the Crimson Overlord would immediately slay all living beings who did not follow the rules in the ownerless city. There was once a Supreme Great Cosmos Supreme Will Realm expert and the Crimson Great Cosmos' Supreme Will Realm expert, who battled in the ownerless city because of some conflict. In the end, these two Supreme Will Realm existences were directly killed by the willpower here as soon as they fought. Since then, no life form braved to challenge the rules of the ownerless city here. It was precisely because of the rules here that Zhou Fight chose this place as the venue for Di Huang's meeting. He believed that the fellows invited should be able to tell how sincere he was from the location he chose, on Street 10348 of an ownerless city, the Cultivation Realm Room. Zhou Fight spent 15 Master God tier advanced grade divine crystals to rent this place temporarily as the venue for Di Huang's upcoming meeting. A moment later, a figure pushed open the door and walked in. Zhou Fight looked over. The person who came wore a black gift. His face was pale, but he was very handsome. His eyes were scarlet, and there was a pair of sharp fangs at the corner of his mouth. He looked elegant and gloomy, exuding a mysterious and quiet aura. If such a fellow was placed in a bar, it was unknown how many girls would like him. Succubus Lord? Oh no, it should be Lord Noctil. He smiled and said, I almost forgot that you've already been removed from the succubus race. You're no longer worthy of using the title of Lord Succubus. I'm sure you're feeling down right now. This emperor never thought that way. Zhou Fight said lightly, on the contrary, I think they expelled me from the succubus race as a loss to the succubus race. One day, they will rue it. After saying that, he took a sip of the most famous Master God level wine in the Crimson Great Cosmos, Crimson Moon Wine. As for you, Lord Kane, it's a bit of a surprise to have you here so early. I thought you liked to lie in your coffin and be indifferent even when you heard news about the Supreme Scarlet. Zhou Fight smiled. Lord Kane smiled. You've already taken out the news of the selection of the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army. How can I not come? Tell me about it. What's your message? There's no hurry. Zhou Fight said, It's not too late to wait until all the lords are here. Lord Kane frowned slightly and did not say anything. He found a seat and sat down. In the following period of time, one Scarlet Lord after another arrived at the meeting room. Among them were Lord Karl of the Death Scarlet Divine Kingdom, Lord I. Terry of the Shadow Elf Divine Kingdom, Lord Solon of the Dark Scarlet Divine Kingdom, Lord Wave of the Demon Scarlet Divine Kingdom. Finally, all the lords were already in place before the agreed time ended. There were as many as 25 of them. They looked at Zhou Fight. Their eyes were either scrutinizing, mocking, calm, or cold. There were all kinds of gazes. Zhou Fight also looked at the 25 lords and felt a little emotional. It had to be said that the Scarlet Lord of the Crimson Great Cosmos grew really quickly. Currently, in the Supreme Great Cosmos, other than the Star Alliance Masters under Zhou Fight, the other races, even the high-level bloodline races, had not established a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Why couldn't it be created? Naturally, it was because he did not have the strength. Worshipped God Spirit. Resources, Lord's territory, military strength, Lord's personal strength. He failed to meet the standards in almost every way. Therefore, they had no way of establishing a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. There were not many Empire-tier Lord factions. It was also because of the resources provided by him, the enhancement of his Lord talent and other help, that the Lords of the Star Alliance under him could quickly increase the level of their territory. Until now, almost the lowest had already established an Empire-tier Lord faction among the hundreds of lords. In the Star Alliance, there were more than 50 lords with Divine Kingdom Lord factions. And in the Crimson Great Cosmos? There was no individual existence like he who could lead all the lords to develop rapidly. The biggest reason why they could have so many Divine Kingdom Lord factions and even give birth to a lord, Aus, who could upgrade his territory to a beginner-grade Master God faction, was because the Scarlet Lord was aggressive by nature. Not only could they carry out a fierce and wanton invasion war against the outside world, but the war between them was also very cruel among their own people. It was almost equivalent to raising poisonous goo worms. It was even more tragic than raising the goo worms. It was under such a high-pressure environment that these Scarlet Masters grew at an astonishing speed. That was how Empire-tier Lord factions, Divine Kingdom Lord factions, and even Master God-tier Lord factions were born. The Crimson Overlords, this divine being, naturally had an undeniable responsibility for such a high-pressure environment. It could even be said that he was the creator of such a high-pressure environment. The masters of the myriad races in the E.A. Supreme Great Cosmos had experienced several activities. Even though the rules of the activities were risky, they had not reached the cruel level. Sometimes, the Supreme Will would even give weak lords who could not survive the activities of the lords of the myriad races a way out, such as becoming the lord of the subsidiary territory of other powerful lords. However, in the Crimson Great Cosmos, the Crimson Overlord did not have such mercy at all. This can be seen from the rules of their activities. So far, the Crimson Overlords of the Crimson Great Cosmos had experienced a total of 5 activities, and the rules of these 5 activities were actually the same. It was unlike the activities issued by the Supreme Will, where there were new tricks every time. The Crimson Overlord's rules could be summarized in one word: live. Every time he started an event, he would set an event time. During the event, the Scarlet Lords had to fight with all their might. Every day, every Scarlet Lord had to conquer at least one Scarlet Lord of the same level as them. It was the same every day. At the end of the event, the surviving Scarlet Lord would receive the reward given by the Crimson Overlord. The more Crimson Lord factions that were of the same level or even stronger were eliminated, the better the rewards given by the Crimson Overlord. This was how top-notch Crimson Masters like Noctul rose through slaughter. It could be seen how cruel the Crimson Overlord's rules were, just as he was recalling a huge and bloated Crimson Lord who was also the Wave Lord of the Demon. "Scarlet Divine Kingdom," said impatiently. "We're all here, you crazy shit! Hurry up and give us your information! If you dare to lie to me, don't blame me for not letting you return to your succubus Divine Kingdom that's about to be destroyed." "Hey!" I said, Noctul. "Since your succubus Divine Kingdom is about to be destroyed, why don't you hand it to me? I'll offer 100 Master God tier advanced grade Divine Crystals to buy your succubus Divine Kingdom. How about that?" When the Wave Lord finished speaking, his eyes emitted a greedy light. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Since Noctul dared to attack Aus's Chaos Crimson Divine Kingdom alone, it was actually enough to see how powerful the succubus Divine Kingdom was. Even though he was on the verge of destruction, the Wave Lord was certain that its remaining national assets would definitely increase the strength of his demon Scarlet Divine Kingdom by more than 30%. They could not help but look at Zhou, fight meaningfully, even though the other Scarlet Lords did not say anything after hearing the Wave Lord's words. Their purpose of this time was indeed to obtain information about the Scarlet Supreme Reserve Army, but they also wanted to obtain some remnants of the succubus Divine Kingdom from Noctul. As for whether Noctul would object, was he worthy of objecting? If it was useful to oppose, what was the point of using force? Facing all of this, Zhou Fight was very calm and even wanted to laugh. He wanted to buy the succubus Divine Kingdom for 100 Master God tier advanced grade Divine Crystals. He was really good at opening his mouth. Not to mention the succubus Divine Kingdom at its peak. Even in the current succubus Divine Kingdom, its lowest estimate was more than 10,000 Master God tier advanced grade Divine Crystals in Master God tier advanced grade Divine Crystals. It was no different from snatching. You're a funny guy. Zhou Fight smiled. Suddenly, his eyes emitted a pink demonic glow. The Wave Lord who was looking at him was stunned. He looked at the demonic light in Zhou Fight's eyes, and his expression quickly became blurry. "On your knees," Zhou Fight said coldly. "Yes, Master." The Wave Lord knelt down with an infatuated voice. Upon seeing this scene, the other lords in the conference room immediately fell silent. They looked at the cold-looking Zhou Fight and then at the Lord of Waves, who had lost himself. They suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. What was wrong with the Wave Lord? Could this be affected by Noctul? How did he do it to this extent? the lords thought. They looked at Zhou fight and suddenly felt a sense of fear and reverence. The Wave Lord's power was about the same as them. They were both at the Master God tier level. If the Lord of Wave's current state was really done by Noctool, wouldn't Noctool be able to easily turn them into this? At the thought of this, they suddenly regretted coming. At the same time, Lord Cain narrowed his pupils and said, "Long time no see." The Succubus Lord's succubus eye seems to be much stronger than before. Even though I failed in the last battle, with House, I also accidentally obtained some opportunities that increased my Lord talent by a lot. Zhou fight said with a smile. The Succubus Eye, the strongest bloodline talent of the Succubus race. He could make living beings with Succubus eyes loyal to the owner of the Succubus Eye. A succubus with such talent could almost be said to be the future designated patriarch of the Succubus race. The reason why the Succubus God Lord chose to let Noctool obtain the title of Lord of the Succubus was actually because of the Succubus Eye. However, Noctool was not born with this bloodline talent. Instead, after awakening the Lord talent, he realized that his Lord talent was actually the Eye of Succubus. That was why he successfully rose with this Lord talent. Originally, as the only mythical tier Lord talent, the Succubus Eye could not fascinate the Wave Lord at a glance, but the upper limit of the Lord talent, charm, was not only affected by the upper limit of the Lord talent, but also by the appearance, luck, strength, and other factors of the person with the talent. How much luck did Zhou fight contain? It was almost not inferior to powerful Supreme Will Realm experts. Therefore, if Zhou fight used the Bewitching Eye, the effect of what his original body could not do would not be inferior to the effect of the powerful Supreme Unique Lord talent. With the enhancement of Zhou fight's huge luck, even a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert could charm the current Succubus Eye at a glance. It was naturally simple to fascinate a Lord of Waves, Master God tier elementary grade God Spirit. However, the lords in front of him did not know about Yum. Therefore, at this moment, they gazed at Zhou fight and could not assist but feel that although the Succubus Lord in front of them had just experienced a huge defeat not long ago, she seemed to be stronger and more mysterious than before. Waves Lord, Zhou fight said, "Kill yourself." "Yes, Master," the Waves Lord replied with infatuation. Then, he shattered his divine spark without hesitation and died on the spot. Seeing this scene, all the lords present widened their eyes in shock. The Waves Lord, one of the top Scarlet Lords, actually ended his life in such a strange way. He would lose his life just because of an insult. This was a Master God tier elementary grade God Spirit, a dignified clan-protecting expert. When they looked at the Succubus Lord again, they couldn't help but feel terrified. If this Succubus Lord could make the Waves Lord commit suicide with a single sentence, didn't that mean that she could also easily make them perish in this realm room? Terrifying. This is too terrifying. In the past, they also knew this Succubus Lord. At that time, even though the Succubus Lord was very arrogant because of the sudden increase in the Lord's power, she was not so decisive and violent. They did not expect that after a huge defeat, this Succubus Lord's temperament would change so drastically. It was just a setback. Could it cause such a huge change in a God Spirit? Lord Cain and the other Scarlet Lords were shocked and confused. Just like that, the World Chamber quieted down amidst the confusion and shock of the gods and spirits. When Lord Cain saw this scene, he was afraid that this Succubus Lord would do something terrifying again. He hurriedly said, "Succubus Lord!" "Lord, since the guy who offended you is dead, how about we start talking business?" Zhou fight had a strange expression on his face. When this guy first came in, he called Noctool by his original name. Later on, after seeing that he had intimidated the Waves Lord with a single glance, he called the Succubus Lord. Now, that he had killed the Waves Lord, he directly called him the Succubus Lord. The lords of the Crimson Great Cosmos indeed believed in the principle of the strong being respected. That's true. Those who didn't believe in the law of the jungle would have died long ago. Very good. Zhou Zhou Fight liked people who knew what was good for themselves. That's fine. A few small flies shall not disturb the purpose of our visit. Then I'll tell you what I invited you here for. Zhou Fight uttered slowly. After my last defeat, I've already figured out Lord Ao's strength. The purpose of inviting you to this meeting is simple. I would like to invite everyone to attack Ao's chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom together and completely destroy Aos. Silence. Everyone fell silent. Cain. And the other Scarlet Lords looked at each other and saw the shock and mockery in each other's eyes. Was this a defeated opponent who was unwilling to accept his defeat and decided to reorganize his troops to sweep over again? And you're going to drag us along with you this time, Succubus Lord, Lord Terry of the Shadow Elf Scarlet. Divine Kingdom said awkwardly, My Divine Kingdom is currently at war with the demon race's Scarlet Divine Kingdom. I'm afraid it will be difficult to divert troops and cooperate with the Succubus Lord to attack Ao's Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom together. The God Lord Scarlet Flame of the Scarlet Flame Divine Kingdom also said, I've also been at war with the Wild Wolf Divine Kingdom recently. I really can't get away. The other Scarlet Lords chimed in. When Zhou Fight saw that they was unwilling to cooperate, he knew that most of them were lying. Only a few Scarlet Lords were telling the truth, but even if they were telling the truth, they probably did not want to go in the first place. Zhou Fight was understandable. But he wouldn't allow it. Everyone. I know you don't think much of me. But has it ever occurred to you that this opportunity may very well be our last? Otherwise, if Lord Aos continues to grow stronger, do you think that fellow won't attack you? Or do you think that in a one-on-one situation you can defeat the current Lord Aos and snatch the position of the 5th Reserve Army from him? Is that why you chose not to attack him? Guys, if that guy does become the 5th Reserve Army, we're really too late. Now, not only do I understand the other party's military arrangements and true strength, but my strength has also increased greatly. You, on the other hand, have a massive number of troops and god spirits. Aos had just been promoted to the beginner-grade master, God-tier kingdom's lord, and was immersed in this huge achievement. At the same time, he had yet to digest the rewards he received after becoming the beginner-grade master God-tier kingdom's lord. Right now, we're at our strongest. It's also the most likely time to beat Aos, if we choose not to take the initiative at this time, but continue to wait. When Lord Aos completely digests the reward of becoming a beginner-grade master god-tier, we won't have any chance to defeat Aos. Aos is very likely to become the true 5th Reserve Army of the Crimson Supreme. Everyone, are you really willing to let that position fall into his hands? Are you really willing to wait for Aos to attack in the future? Are you waiting to die because you can't resist his attack? We must destroy Aos, because it's a matter of life and death. Towards the end, Zhou Fight's voice suddenly became firm, resolute, and powerful. When the lords present heard this, their hearts could not help but sink. How could they not know of Aos's threat? But they really couldn't do anything to Aos. He was recognized by the Crimson Overlord as someone who could take over the 5th Reserve Army. How could they easily shake such a powerful lord? Therefore, even after they heard Zhou Fight's words, there was no movement. Zhou Fight shook his head. If not for the fact that it was inconvenient for him to take out many troops and powerhouses at once, as there was a risk of exposing his identity, why would he need to join forces with them to deal with a mere Aos? He would still need them. If they continued to be so stubborn, then he could only use his last resort. Even though this was risky, it was too abnormal for a large group of Scarlet Lords to be willing to follow him to deal with Lord Aos. However, it was much less risky than him suddenly taking out a bunch of Master God tiers and Supreme Gods. It seems that you have always been unwilling to take the risk, preferring to have a bleak future in order to survive for a while. Zhou Fight said coldly. Lord Cain saw that Zhou Fight's tone was off and had a bad feeling. He hurriedly said, Succubus Lord, it's not that we don't want to take the risk, but Aos is too powerful. We also secretly observed the battle between you and Aos. Who would have thought that there would be a supreme god serving him under that guy? That's a supreme god. We only have less than 20,000 in the entire Crimson Great Cosmos. He holds a powerful trump card, the supreme god. Basically, it means that we can't resist him. We know you're right. However, we really don't have the confidence to face a supreme god. The other Scarlet Lords nodded solemnly. I have supreme gods too, Zhou Fight said. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Yun and Feng Luo appeared behind him. The two god spirits' expressions were cold, and a supreme god-level willpower pressure suddenly erupted from their bodies. Supreme gods, two of them at that. All the lords present stood up in shock and looked at the two supreme gods. The succubus lord really hid it well. After a while, the lords present recovered from their shock. Lord Terry of the Shadow Elf Scarlet Divine Kingdom looked at Zhou Fight coquettishly. You actually have two supreme gods under your command. We actually didn't know. Since there are two supreme gods, we dare to declare war on Aus. However, I'm curious about one thing. Since you already have two supreme gods under your command, why didn't you see these two, Your Excellency, when you fought with Aus previously, causing you to be defeated in the end and even be seriously injured? He looked at Zhou Fight curiously. I met these two, Your Excellency, after my defeat. They originally had a feud with the ancient Chaos Humans. Now that I've heard that the Chaos Humans are actually on the verge of rising again, and that I became like this because I attacked the Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom. Not only did I heal my injuries, but I also agreed to join my Divine Kingdom to deal with Aus's Scarlet Divine Kingdom together. When the lords heard this, they immediately felt deep veneration. Ancient Chaos Humans? Is that the Chaos Human from the Chaos Will era? That makes sense. The Chaos Humans during the Chaos Will era could be considered the #1 race during the unification of the Great Cosmos. Back then, the Chaos Humans had indeed made many enemies, because they were doted on by the Chaos Will alone. Now, the Divine Kingdom Overlord faction that Aus inherited through his Lord Talent was the Divine Kingdom Overlord faction left behind by the remnants of the Chaos Humans. Thus, this hatred naturally fell on Aus. The Succubus Lord is really blessed after surviving a calamity. She was clearly defeated, but such a good thing still happened to her. Some lords said enviously, Who asked me to dare to attack Aus? If it were you, you might have caught the eye of these two seniors, Zhou Fight said calmly. The lords fell silent. When Noctul led the Succubus Divine Kingdom to attack Aus's Chaos, Scarlet Divine Kingdom, many of the lords of they did not think highly of the other party's war operation. They even secretly called the other party a fool. The truth was indeed as they had expected. Noctul had indeed lost. However, who would have thought that even though Aus was defeated, he had unexpectedly received two supreme gods? If they had known that there would be such an opportunity, they would have taken it upon themselves. With two supreme gods in hand, they would not be afraid of Aus. However, it was too late for that now. Now are you sticking to what you were thinking? The chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom that is unwilling to attack Aus with me? Zhou Fight looked at the lords and asked again. Yes. Since the other party's supreme god is no longer a threat, we naturally won't be afraid of Aus. Little Aus, I've lost to him once in the past. I must win it back this time. I'm going to cut Aus into pieces. If we attack together, Aus will definitely not survive, the Scarlet Lord said happily. At that moment, Lord Solon of the Dark and Scarlet Divine Kingdom suddenly said, Succubus Lord, I'd like to ask you a question before we confirm our cooperation. Zhou Fight looked at Lord Solon and recalled his information. Even though Lord Solon was only a Master God-tier elementary grade god spirit, the dark race behind him had two supreme god ancestors. Therefore, even among the many Scarlet Lords, Lord Zoro had a high status. It was precisely because of this that when he saw that there were two supreme gods behind Zhou Fight, he did not show any fear and even dared to raise a question. Ask away. How will you interact with us next if we destroy Aus's Chaos Scarlet Divine Kingdom? Zhou Fight asked calmly. We don't want our former partner to suddenly become another Lord Aus, Lord Solon said. The lords could not, helped but look at Zhou fight, feeling more or less uneasy once this was mentioned. This succubus lord now had 2 supreme god subordinates. If they really joined forces to destroy Lord Aus, the succubus lord might very well replace Lord Aus and become a new existence that threatened their survival. This was something they had to consider. They did not want a new enemy to be born after they had just eliminated one. I know what you mean. However, we're all Scarlet Lords. It's normal for us to fight each other. Neither I nor you will, nor can you guarantee, never attack each other. And aren't you worried that we will suddenly become enemies after defeating Aus? I'll tell you what, I'll promise you that as long as we jointly defeat Aus, I will definitely not immediately turn around and attack you guys. You guys should promise the same. But there are limits. This restriction will no longer exist when any of you advances to become a lord of the Master God-tier kingdom first. What do you think? Zhou fight asked. The lords looked at each other and nodded slowly. The other Scarlet Lords also nodded. They had a certain level of confidence in their hearts. They currently could not defeat Aus, or even the succubus lord who was worshipped by the supreme god. However, as long as they were given time to develop and become the lord of the master god-tier kingdom, they would be confident that they would have the strength to deal with the succubus lord. Zhou fight nodded slowly, laughing in his heart. It was just a group of divine kingdom lords. He was not interested even if they wanted to take the initiative to attack. He was only interested in the beginner-grade master god-tier lords. Therefore, this restriction was basically non-existent to him. How will we split the benefits after we take down the chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom? I have the power of a supreme god, so I want 30% of the profits. The rest is divided according to how much effort you put in. Zhou fight asked. The Scarlet Lords discussed for a while before nodding in agreement, if that's the case. Let's go back and prepare the troops. We will attack Aus's chaotic Scarlet Divine Kingdom tomorrow. We must destroy the other party in one fell swoop. We must not let the other party have a chance to make a comeback, Zhou fight said, in a deep voice that matched Noctul's tone. Okay, the Scarlet Lords agreed one after another with bloodthirsty excitement on their faces. After Di Huang's meeting ended, Zhou fight bade farewell to the Scarlet Lords and returned to the succubus god capital. Your Majesty, I don't think they are very reliable. Bai Yun came in front of Zhou fight and said worriedly, This Emperor thinks so too. Zhou fight said lightly, but this is not a big deal because this Emperor's power and strength are far stronger than they. No matter what rebellious thing they wants to do, to this Emperor, it's boring and useless as a child playing house. You don't have to worry about them ruining our plans. They can't do anything big with their ability. I worry too much. Bai Yun nodded in realization. Zhou fight nodded and did not say anything else. At night, in the sky of the reincarnation sacred palace of the blazing sun divine capital, Zhou fight was looking at the summary that Zero had just summarized about the total profits of today's war. Under the combined efforts of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom Army and the army on the Ultimate Void battlefield, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom had eliminated a total of 121 beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions, 88 intermediate-grade Divine Kingdom Lord factions, 41 advanced Divine Kingdom Lord factions, and 9 Overlord-level Lord factions. In addition, on the Ultimate Void battlefield, because the 2 Grade 4 Supreme God-level war territories had been completely abandoned by the Ultimate Void race, Zhou fight did not engage in any battle with them today. Fortunately, there were a total of 10 Void Mystic Realms in these 2 Grade 4 Supreme God-level war territories. Zhou fight divided his forces and conquered all 10 Void Mystic Realms in one go. He used the Lord talent of the Son of Destiny along the way. Together, they had eliminated a total of more than 300 billion God spirits, more than 300 billion true God tiers, more than 200,000 Master God tiers, more than 200 Supreme Gods, and 5 quasi-supreme willpower realm experts. It had to be said that the number of enemies eliminated was much, much lower than before. However, the direct withdrawal of the Ultimate Void race was something that Zhou fight could not predict in advance. He could only accept this unfortunate, Outcome. Then again, after statistics, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom had obtained a total of 5,000 capital units of various levels of mist cores, origin crystals, skill books, equipment, and basic materials today. As capital units, 8,031, 178, 208, 313,289, green bronze tier, Lord Talent crystal fragments. 1,588 units of chaos, divine treasure. Teen 111th, 283. Legendary tier and below Lord Talent spheres. A large number of Lord Talent crystal fragments of other levels. There were also 1 Guy unit 2,398. Capital units 723,167,121 million units of divine. Crystals from low-tier deity level to high-tier deity level. All 192,823,891,033 true god tier divine crystals. 283,123,617 Master God tier divine crystals, 138,813,871 Grade 1 to Grade 3 Supreme God divine crystals. 12 capital units had 12,331, 328,711,000 low level to high tier deity level divine artifacts. 12,323,860,000 true God tier divine artifacts. 29,233,278 Master God tier divine artifacts, 124,128 Supreme God divine artifacts. There were about 2,311 trillion divine spark fragments in a total of 10 capital units. God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures. 98, 737th, Ford, 69,273 Master God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures, 2,312,000 megasm 39. Supreme God level God tier herbs, God tier ingredients, God tier ores, God tier blueprints, and other treasures. In terms of incite defection, Zhou Fight did not use the Land of Earth, a minister of the king today. He only used the Son of Destiny and instigated the incite defection to create a god spirit in the void mystic realm. He instigated a total of 21,923, 841,283 low-tier deity-level god spirits, 1,434,982,3 and 76 mid-tier deity level. God spirits, 10,023,972,381. High-tier deity level god spirits, 2,497,823,410. True gods, 52,309 supremacies, and 5 supreme gods. In addition, the Lords of the Star Alliance had also instigated 555 capital units, soldiers, more than 1.511 billion god spirits, more than 1 million true god tiers, and 312 supremacy gods. In the end, in terms of the advancement of god spirits, there were a total of 112,329,182, 311 legendary tier advanced grade soldiers who had advanced to low tier deity level elementary grade god spirits. There were also 2,219,273 high-tier deity-level Su advanced-grade god spirits who had advanced to true god-tier elementary-grade god spirits. Another 4,113 top-notch true gods of the human race. And 12,397 top-notch true gods of the people of foreign races felt their master god-tier bottleneck and applied to enter the reincarnation sacred palace to cultivate in seclusion to try to break through to the master god-tier realm. Furthermore, there were 2 master god-tier advanced-grade god spirits who had sensed the bottleneck in their advancement and were also preparing to enter the reincarnation sacred palace today to advance to grade 1 supreme god. If nothing went wrong, he would officially break through tomorrow. Zhou Zhou's original military strength was 2 Guy unit 7,922 capital units, 2,397,109 G2, 523, 743,888 soldiers, 799, 7781, 362, 618, God spirits, 14,488, Sona 99, 388, true gods, 241, 9081, master gods, and 182 supreme gods, and 1 quasi-supreme willpower realm expert. Now, with the addition of these divine spirit powerhouses who had instigated incite defection, and the 5 supreme gods and 15 supremacies gods recruited from the chaotic mystic realm, the troops under he had reached 1 Guy unit 9,922 capital units with 238,712,652, 743,888 soldiers, 94th 183th 203th 901 God spirits, 15,930 301 337, true gods, 294th 102 master gods, and 196 supreme gods. Zhou Zhou shook his head slightly after reading it. The main combat army under him had experienced too few enemies today. As a result, the strength of the soldiers under him didn't increase much. Forget it, just take it that. The soldiers were off for the day. He didn't dwell on it. In addition to the above war summary, in terms of purchasing Chaos Divine treasures in the Chaos Sea, the management of the Chaos Sea today bought 220 units of Chaos Divine treasures from the Divine Kingdom Lord factions that collected Chaos Divine treasures in the Time Ruins. He originally had 4,624 units of Chaos Divine treasures. Now with these 220 units of Chaos Divine treasures and the 1,588 units of Chaos Divine treasures obtained from the Ultimate Void battlefield, it added up to 6,432 units of Chaos Divine treasures. This number of Chaos Divine treasures was enough to meet the requirements to upgrade his territory. At this thought, Zhou Zhou immediately teleported and disappeared from the Reincarnation Sacred Palace. In the sky of the Reincarnation, Sacred Palace of the Blazing Sun Divine Capital. Zhou Zhou looked down at Blazing Sun Divine Capital. He had a thought. The next second, with 4,000 Gai units of basic materials, 10,000 Master God tier advanced grade divine crystals, 100 capital units origin crystals, 5,000 Chaos Divine treasures, and 50 Ultimate Void crystals instantly disappeared. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Master God tier elementary grade, God's Kingdom, Lord's Law, has successfully advanced to the Master God tier intermediate grade God's Kingdom, Lord's Law. Your territory has successfully upgraded to Master God tier advanced grade territory. Your Master God tier intermediate grade 1 heart array has been upgraded to Master God tier advanced grade. The durability of the territory stone tablet has increased to 100 capital units, 100 capital units. Your territory has expanded to 10 trillion kilometers gaish 10 trillion kilometers x 50 million kilometers ar. You have expelled all the fog monsters in the territory of the new territory. The Scarlet Fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward. Mythical tier building blueprint treasure chest. True God tier advanced grade. Lord Talent notification. Your Scarlet Broodmother can be upgraded. Lord Talent notification. Your mysterious caravan has been upgraded. Lord Talent notification. The strength of the clergy of your life arc has increased. Chu Chu nodded in satisfaction. He had finally advanced to Master God tier intermediate grade. In the past, 5,000 units of chaos. Divine treasures did sound scary, but now that he thought about it, the difficulty of collecting them was only average. However, looking back, the difficulty of collecting them was only average. Building upgrade, 5,000 Gai units. Wood, 5,000 Gai units. Sand, 5,000 Gai units. Metal, 5,000 Gai units. Stone, 1,000 grade 1, Supreme God. Divine crystals, 1,000 capital units. Origin crystals, 10,000 Chaos Divine treasures, 100 Ultimate Void crystals, 100 Advanced Divine kingdoms, 10 Beginner Grade Master God tier kingdoms, 10 Grade 1 Supreme God Spirit, 1 billion heroes. Zhou Zhou frowned deeply after reading it. Basic materials, Supreme God Divine crystals, Origin crystals, Advanced Divine kingdoms, Supreme gods and heroes. He could meet all these conditions, but 10,000 units of Chaos Divine treasures, 100 units of Ultimate Void crystals, 10 Beginner Grade Master God tier kingdoms. Each of these 3 requests was more ridiculous than the last. Needless to say, the Chaos Divine treasure. Zhou Zhou knew very well how troublesome it was to collect Chaos Divine treasures during this period of time. If he didn't have many channels that could be used to collect Chaos Divine treasures, he wouldn't have been able to collect 5,000 units of Chaos Divine treasures to upgrade his territory in such a short period of time. But he had already collected all the Void Mystic realms, in the ultimate void battlefield. Now, in the ultimate void battlefield, other than the sanctuary, there were no other chaos divine treasures. In other words, he had already lost one of the important channels to obtain the chaos divine treasure. It could even be said to be the largest source of the chaos divine treasure. Be it the chaos divine treasures brought by the space-time chaotic divine demons, time, or the chaos divine treasures produced in the middle, there were not many of them after all. Together, they could not compare to the total number of chaos divine treasures produced in the void mystic realm in the ultimate void battleground. Starting tomorrow, the number of chaos divine treasures he obtained every day would greatly decrease. There was no need to mention the ultimate void crystal. If the Supreme Will and the ultimate void clan were to fight tomorrow, the Supreme Will would win, while the ultimate void clan would be defeated. Then, they could only choose to escape. When the time came, within the boundless ultimate void great cosmos, the ultimate void race could find any place to hide. Even the Supreme Will might not be able to find them, let alone obtain the ultimate void crystal in their hands. At that time, Zhou Zhou would not be able to find even one unit of ultimate void crystal in the Supreme Great Cosmos. As for the last 10 beginner grade master god-tier kingdoms, Zhou Zhou looked up at the sky speechlessly. Beginner grade master god-tier kingdoms? Lord Supreme Will, are you serious? Can't you see that I've spent a lot of effort to find a beginner grade master god-tier kingdom? Find 10 beginner grade master god-tier kingdoms and conquer them all? How long would that take? He frowned and thought for a while. Then he suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. Am I being too hasty? Now, it was very difficult for them to even produce a beginner-grade master god-tier lord territory. The competitive pressure in the Crimson Great Cosmos was so great. But it was only because a beginner-grade master god-tier lord territory had just been born. Why should he rush to pursue supreme god-level territories? Even if he could not upgrade his territory in a short period of time because the requirements for upgrading his territory were too high, it would definitely be even more difficult for the other lords. He could take it slow and not be in such a hurry. When he spent some time to upgrade his territory to the territory of a Grade 1 Supreme God, the entire Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos might not even have Master God tier intermediate grade Lord territory. There was no need for him to be anxious. Then take your time. Zhou Zhou calmed down a lot after thinking it through, he began to think. He definitely couldn't be so slow even though he had said to take it slow. First of all, the Chaos Divine Treasure. Define. Ultimate Void Battleground might not be able to provide him with new Chaos Divine Treasures in the future, but, as a place that had yet to be explored, there must be a sufficient number of void mystic realms and a certain number of chaos divine treasures inside the holy domain of the ultimate void battlefield. Even if there were not many chaos divine treasures, he could not let them go. It would be a waste not to take it anyway. After the chaos divine treasures in the ultimate void battleground were completely taken away, Zhou Zhou could ask Zhou fight to investigate the source of the chaos divine treasures in the Crimson Great Cosmos. If he could figure out the source of the chaos divine treasure in the Crimson Great Cosmos and grasp the method to obtain it steadily, even though he had lost the source of the chaos divine treasure, the ultimate void battleground, he would still have a new source of the chaos divine treasure. Moreover, the chaos divine treasures produced from this source might be even more than the ones produced in the ultimate void battleground. Second, it's about the ultimate void crystal. If the Supreme Will defeated the Void Emperor would definitely escape with his ultimate void race. When the time came, there must be some ultimate void crystals in the sacred zone of the ultimate void battleground. He had to find a way to obtain this batch of ultimate void crystals to make up for his lack of resources in this aspect. If the Void Emperor retreated very cleanly and did not leave anything behind, Zhou Zhou could at most split out a few clones and head to the ultimate void cosmos to personally search for the ultimate void crystal. The ultimate void crystal was a unique product of the ultimate void great cosmos. If the ultimate void race could not obtain it, they would directly collect it from its origin. The ultimate void great cosmos. As for the upgrade requirements for conquering 10 beginner grade master god-tier kingdoms, Zhou Zhou naturally had confidence in himself when it came to conquering. However, the key was that there were no other beginner grade master god-tier countries in the supreme great cosmos or the crimson great cosmos other than ours. Hence, Zhou Zhou had an idea. It was the same as nurturing Linger to establish a beginner grade master god-tier kingdom. At the same time, she would nurture 8 other beginner grade master god-tier kingdoms in the supreme great cosmos and the crimson great cosmos. It's a little costly, though. However, if he wanted to continue upgrading his territory, this was the only way. You guys can't do it yourself, right? It's fine. I'll pull all of you up and then harvest you together. That should be fine, right? Zhou Zhou had only thought of these methods at the moment. As for other methods, he had not thought of them yet. He would think of them in the future. Then, he didn't hesitate and immediately contacted Lord of 10,000 Evils through his personal terminal, Big Brother. Soon, the Lord of 10,000 Evils' surprised voice came from the terminal. Brother Demon Lord, I have a favor to ask of you, Zhou Zhou said. Don't stand on ceremony with me. As long as I can do it, I'll do my best to help you. If I can't, I'll do it for you, the Lord of 10,000 Evils said without hesitation. Zhou Zhou was speechless. I don't know if it's true or not, but it does sound good. Recently, I've been facing a difficult promotion to a new territory. There is a shortage of Chaos Divine Treasures and Ultimate Void Crystals. The Sanctuary should be back in our hands after the war between the Supreme Will and the Void Emperor is over. When the time comes, if you have the chance, help me take away the Chaos Divine Treasure and the Ultimate Void Crystal in the Sacred Zone. I can use divine artifacts or divine crystals to exchange for it. From inferior divine artifacts to supreme divine artifacts. I have both, Zhou Zhou said. No problem, big brother, leave it to me. The Lord of 10,000 Evils agreed without hesitation.